Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the screen until her eyes burned. The numbers made no sense. They should have made sense, but they didn't. For the past 6 hours, she had been running the same analysis over and over, hoping the computer would tell her something different. It never did. Outside her office window, Mars glowed red in the distance. The terraforming stations dotted its surface like tiny jewels. Humanity had come so far in 200 years. They had colonies on every planet in the solar system. They had built ships that could travel to other stars. They had created technology that their ancestors would have called magic, but they were still alone. Sarah pushed back from her desk and rubbed her face. The Pan-Solar Observatory had been sending signals into space for decades. Music, mathematics, images of Earth, messages of peace, thousands of transmissions, each one carefully crafted to show whoever might be listening that humanity was ready to join the galactic community. The universe had responded with nothing but silence. Still at it? Sarah jumped. Marcus Webb stood in her doorway, his admiral's uniform crisp despite the late hour. The man never seemed to sleep. "There's something wrong with the data," Sarah said. "Our transmissions aren't reaching as far as they should." Marcus walked into the office and leaned against her desk. "Equipment failure?" "No, the arrays are working perfectly. It's like something is stopping our signals at the edge of the solar system." She pulled up a 3-dimensional map of their transmission range. A perfect sphere surrounded the solar system, but at its edge, the signals simply stopped. Not faded, stopped. Marcus leaned closer. "That's not natural." "No," Sarah agreed. "It's not." They stared at the map in silence. Finally, Marcus straightened. "How long have you known?" "I discovered it 3 days ago. I've been trying to find a normal explanation." Sarah met his eyes. "There isn't one." "Someone put a wall around us," Marcus said quietly. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah had been thinking the same thing for 3 days, but hearing someone else say it made it real. Terrifyingly real. "We need to tell the assembly," Sarah said. "We will. But first I need you to do something for me." Marcus pulled out a data chip. "Run a search through all our historical records. Every radio telescope, every deep space probe, every listening station we've ever had. Look for anything we might have missed. Anything that might tell us who built this wall." Sarah took the chip. "You think someone tried to contact us before?" "I think if someone went to the trouble of building a cage around our solar system, they might have left us a note explaining why." It took 2 weeks to search through 200 years of data. Sarah assembled a team of 5 researchers and set them loose on the archives. They found thousands of anomalies. Space was noisy. Pulsars, quasars, gamma-ray bursts, cosmic background radiation. Most of it was natural. Some of it was clearly artificial but came from human sources. Then they found it. The signal had been received 43 years ago by a radio telescope in Chile. It had been flagged as unusual, sent to a government office for analysis, and promptly buried under bureaucratic red tape. The researcher who found it had retired. The office that received it had been shut down. The signal had sat in a digital archive, forgotten, until now. Sarah played it for Marcus in a secure conference room. The message was short. The translation software struggled with it, but the meaning was clear enough. "Remain silent. Remain still. You are not ready." They listened to it 3 times. Marcus's face grew harder with each repetition. "Not ready for what?" he finally asked. "First contact, maybe," Sarah said. "Maybe they're protecting us from something. Or protecting themselves from us." Marcus stood and paced the room. "Either way, they made a choice for us without asking. They built a wall around humanity and told us to sit quietly in our corner. We don't know their intentions," Sarah said carefully. "Maybe they have good reasons. Maybe they do." Marcus stopped pacing and looked at her. "But we deserve to know what those reasons are. We deserve a choice." The United Earth Assembly met 3 days later. Representatives from every colony, every nation, every major corporation gathered in the orbital station above Earth. Sarah presented her findings. The room erupted in argument. Some wanted to respect the warning. Whoever sent it clearly had technology far beyond humanity's capabilities. Starting a conflict would be suicide. Others were outraged. Humanity had fought too hard for its freedom to accept a cage now, no matter how gilded. Marcus waited until the shouting died down. Then he stood. 200 years ago, our ancestors looked at the stars and decided to reach for them. We didn't ask permission. We didn't wait for someone to tell us we were ready. We built ships and went. His voice carried across the chamber. We faced ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters. Every time someone said we weren't ready. Every time we proved them wrong. He gestured to the holographic display showing the barrier around their solar system. This wall wasn't built to protect us. It was built to control us, to keep us quiet, to make the decision for us about what we can and cannot do. And what do you propose? Asked the European sector representative. We can't break through that barrier. We don't have that kind of power, don't we? Marcus smiled grimly. Show them, Sarah. Sarah pulled up new calculations. The Archimedes array. We built it to study stellar phenomena, but if we reconfigure all 64 solar collectors and focus their output on a single point, we can punch through, Marcus finished. One controlled burst. Enough to prove we know the wall is there. Enough to prove we're not afraid. And then what? Someone shouted. They'll retaliate. Maybe, Marcus agreed. Or maybe they'll finally talk to us like equals instead of children. Either way, we'll have our answer. The vote took 6 hours. It passed by a narrow margin. 3 months later, the Archimedes array powered up. 64 massive solar collectors, each the size of a small city, aligned themselves in perfect synchronization. They focused every joule of energy they could gather from the sun into a single blazing lance of power. The barrier at the edge of the solar system had stood for who knew how long. It had quietly absorbed every transmission humanity ever sent. It took the Archimedes array 12 minutes to burn through it. In the moment the barrier broke, humanity sent one final message. Not music this time. Not mathematics. Not peaceful greetings, just 5 words, we're coming. Ready or not? Sarah watched the transmission race toward the stars at the speed of light. There was no taking it back now. For better or worse, humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy. How long until we get a response? She asked quietly. Marcus stood beside her, watching the stars. Could be hours. Could be years. But they know we're here now. They know we're not going to sit quietly anymore. Did we just start a war? Maybe. Marcus smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had made peace with whatever came next. Or maybe we just made sure we'd never be ignored again. The stars glittered in the darkness, no longer silent, no longer mysterious. Somewhere out there, someone had just received humanity's warning. Now they would see what happened next. The council chamber existed in a place without coordinates. It floated in a pocket of folded space accessible only to those who knew its location. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered in a structure that defied normal geometry. Each delegate sat in an environment suited to their biology. Some breathed oxygen. Others required methane. A few existed as patterns of energy with no physical form at all. High Counselor Vareth of the Kelvorian Empire had called this emergency session. His species stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. He was ancient by any standard. Having served on the council for 200 cycles, he had never been this afraid. The barrier has been breached, he announced. The chamber fell silent. Quarantine Zone 7743, designation Sol System. The humans have broken through. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the wound humanity had burned into the containment field. The calculations scrolled past. Several delegates made sounds of distress. Impossible, someone whispered. Clearly not, Vareth said coldly. The readings are confirmed. The humans generated energy equivalent to a Class B stellar flare and focused it to a point. The barrier held for 12 minutes before catastrophic failure. Council member Shira of the Mirian Collective leaned forward. Her species was small, barely a meter tall, with large eyes and delicate features. They were scientists and philosophers, the keepers of galactic knowledge. How long has their species had advanced technology? She asked. Approximately 200 of their years, Vareth replied. They achieved nuclear fission 240 years ago. We placed them under quarantine protocol shortly after. 200 years. Shira's voice was thoughtful. It took my people 4,000 years to develop the capability to breach a containment field. It took yours even longer, Vareth. Which proves my point exactly, Vareth said. They are dangerously advanced for their age. Dangerously aggressive. Commander Thane of the Threne Protectorate spoke up. His people were warriors who had evolved past the need for war, or so they claimed. Tall and powerfully built, with gray skin marked by ceremonial scars, Thane commanded the respect of the chamber. What message did they send? He asked. Vareth hesitated. Then he played it, 5 words, simple, direct, terrifying in their confidence. We're coming, ready or not. The chamber erupted. Some delegates demanded immediate military response. Others called for dialogue. A few simply wanted to increase the quarantine and hoped the humans stayed contained. Shira raised her hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, she spoke carefully, We need to understand what we're dealing with. I request permission to study their civilization in detail. Their history, their culture, their psychology. To what purpose? Vareth demanded. We know what they are. They are a pre-FTL species that should have been decades away from breaking quarantine. Instead, they've done so centuries ahead of schedule. They are unstable, dangerous. They are unknown, Shira corrected. Unknown is not the same as dangerous. Tell that to the Peltherin, Vareth said quietly. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone knew that story. The Peltherin had been a peaceful species, exploring their region of space when they encountered the Zelthani. The Zelthani were young by galactic standards, aggressive and territorial. First contact had ended in violence. The war that followed had nearly destroyed both species and 3 others caught in the crossfire. That disaster had led to the creation of the quarantine protocols. Never again would the Council risk premature contact with developing species. Better to wait. To observe. To ensure that newcomers were truly ready for the responsibilities that came with galactic citizenship. The youngest species currently in the Council, the Zelthani themselves, had been quarantined for 3,000 years before they proved themselves stable enough for contact. They had achieved FTL travel and waited patiently for first contact, demonstrating wisdom and restraint. The humans had waited exactly 0 seconds before demanding to be acknowledged. The protocols exist for a reason, Vareth continued, to protect everyone, including the developing species themselves. I agree the protocols exist for a reason, Shira said, but the humans have already broken them. We cannot unring this bell. We can either respond with violence, which will certainly lead to war, or we can respond with wisdom. I advocate for the latter. Thane nodded slowly. The Mirian speaks truth. The humans have made their move. Now we must decide how to respond. But we should respond from a position of knowledge, not fear. Vareth looked around the chamber. He could see the fear in many faces. The Council had maintained peace for millennia, precisely because they controlled first contact. They decided when species were ready. They maintained order. The humans had just shattered that order. Very well, Vareth said finally. The Council will study the humans. We will prepare a response, but I am also ordering the 6th Fleet to the edge of their system. If they make any aggressive moves, we will be ready. That is unwise, Thane said sharply. Military presence will only escalate tensions. The humans have already escalated by breaking quarantine, Vareth countered. I will not risk another Peltherin-Zelthani incident. The fleet will deploy. That is final. The vote was called. It passed but barely. The Council was divided. As the delegates dispersed, Shira approached Thane privately. He will start a war, she said quietly. He is afraid, Thane replied. Fear makes people foolish. But he is not wrong to be cautious. We know nothing about these humans. Then help me learn. Shira pulled up a data crystal. I've already begun preliminary research. Their planet is remarkable. They evolved as both predator and prey. Do you understand what that means? Thane frowned. That's unusual. Most species are one or the other. Exactly. The Kelvorians evolved as apex predators. My people evolved as prey. We developed intelligence to hide and survive. The Kelvorians developed intelligence to hunt and dominate. Both paths led to civilization, but they shaped our psychologies in fundamental ways. And the humans? They have both psychologies. They cooperate like prey species, forming massive social groups and building civilizations. But they also compete like predators, constantly fighting amongst themselves. Shira's eyes were wide with fascination. They've been in a state of war for their entire recorded history. Not one war, continuous war. For 10,000 years, Thane was quiet for a long moment, and they survived? More than survived. They thrived. Every war drove them to innovate, to improve, to adapt. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons, then decided to simply live with that threat hanging over them. They called it mutually assured destruction and went about their daily lives. That's insane, or incredibly brave. Shira looked at the data scrolling past. I need more time to study them. But Thane, I think we may be making a terrible mistake. The quarantine was meant to protect them. I think instead we've just made them very, very angry. 3 days later, the Council sent their official response to humanity. It was carefully worded, diplomatically perfect. It welcomed humanity to the galactic stage and requested they remain in their system, while proper first contact protocols were prepared. Sarah Chen read the message aloud to Admiral Webb. When she finished, they looked at each other. They want us to stay put, Sarah said. They want us to be good little children and wait patiently while they decide our fate, Marcus corrected. He stood and walked to the window. Earth hung below, blue and beautiful and small. Maybe we should, Sarah said quietly. Maybe they know something we don't. Maybe the galaxy is more dangerous than we think. Maybe it is, Marcus agreed. Or maybe they're just scared of competition. Either way, they made one mistake. What's that? Marcus smiled grimly. They told us they exist. They told us there's a whole galaxy out there. You can't put that knowledge back in the box, Sarah. Now every human knows we're not alone. Now every human knows someone out there decided we needed to be caged. So what do? We do what humans always do when someone tells us to stay down. Marcus pulled up a star map. The generation ships were highlighted, each one carrying thousands of people toward distant stars. We stand up. Sarah looked at the ships, then at Earth, then at the stars beyond. This could go badly, she said. It probably will, Marcus agreed. But at least we'll know we tried. At least we'll know we didn't spend the rest of human history sitting quietly in a cage, wondering what might have been. The order went out across the solar system. The generation ships would not turn back. New ships would launch. Humanity would continue to expand, continue to explore, continue to reach for the stars. And if the galaxy had a problem with that, the galaxy could try to stop them. Ready or not, humanity was coming. Captain Maria Liu had been born on Earth, trained on Mars, and spent the last 8 years preparing for this journey. The generation ship Magellan was her home now. It carried 50,000 people in suspended animation, and another 5,000 crew members who would live out their lives on this vessel. Their children would continue the journey. Their grandchildren might see Proxima Centauri. That was the plan anyway. Maria stood on the bridge watching the stars. They had been traveling for 6 months. Earth was a distant memory. The sun was just another bright point in the darkness. Ahead, Proxima Centauri waited, a red dwarf star with at least one potentially habitable planet. Captain, we have contacts, her tactical officer said suddenly. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, surrounding us. Maria's heart jumped into her throat. How many? 12, no, 15, they're still arriving. The view screen lit up with alien ships. They were beautiful in their own way, all flowing curves and strange geometries. Each one was twice the size of the Magellan. They moved with casual precision, forming a perfect sphere around the human vessel. Are they hostile? Maria asked, keeping her voice steady. Unknown. They're powering up weapons, but they haven't locked on yet. A communication request came through. Maria accepted it. The alien that appeared on screen was tall and shimmering, with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to shift colors. When it spoke, the translation software rendered its words in flat mechanical English. Human vessel. You are in violation of Council quarantine protocols. You will reverse course immediately and return to your system of origin. Maria felt anger flash through her. This was a Kelvorian. She had studied the message the Council sent. She knew what they looked like now. This is Captain Maria Liu of the UES Magellan, she said formally. We are on a peaceful colonization mission. We have every right to travel freely through space. You have no rights beyond those the Council grants you, the Kelvorian said. You are a quarantined species. Return to your system or you will be forced to comply. Forced? Maria kept her voice level, but her hands gripped the armrests of her command chair. Is that a threat? It is a statement of fact. Your species is not ready for galactic contact. We are protecting you from dangers you cannot comprehend. Turn back. Maria looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her. Some looked afraid. Others looked angry. All of them waited for her decision. She thought of the 50,000 people sleeping in the cryo bays. People who had left everything behind for a chance at a new world. People who trusted her to get them there. She thought of Admiral Webb's last message before they left. If they try to stop you, remember what you're fighting for. Not just yourself. Not just the people on your ship. You're fighting for humanity's right to exist in this galaxy. Maria made her decision. No, she said simply. The Kelvorian's expression shifted. You refuse? We have broken no laws except ones we never agreed to. We harm no one. We claim no one's territory. We are simply traveling to an empty system to build a new home. Maria leaned forward. If you want to stop us, you'll have to do it by force. And that, Commander, would make you the aggressors, not us. You don't understand what you're risking, the Kelvorian said. There was something in its voice now. Uncertainty? Fear? Then explain it to us, Maria said. Talk to us like equals, not like children who need to be controlled. The time for talk is not now. Final warning, Captain. Turn back or be disabled. The transmission cut. Maria took a breath. Tactical status? They're powering weapons, targeting our engines and power generation. They want to disable us, not destroy us, Maria said. That's something. She pulled up the ship's systems. The Magellan was a colony ship, not a warship. But it had been designed to survive the harshness of space. And it had tools. Lots of tools. Redirect all power to shields, she ordered. Engineering, I need the mining lasers online. Tactical, plot-firing solutions on the closest ships. Her crew hesitated. Captain, those are mining tools, not weapons. A laser that can cut through an asteroid can cut through a ship, Maria interrupted. Humanity didn't get this far by using tools for only one purpose. Move, the Kelvorian ships fired first. Blue beams of energy lanced through space, striking the Magellan's shields. The ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Shields holding at 40%, Tactical called out. Those weapons should have disabled us completely. They don't know how we build things, Maria said grimly. Human engineering was redundant. Triple backups, overlapping systems. The Magellan could lose half its components and still limp along. It was a philosophy born from centuries of disaster. If something could fail, it eventually would. So you made sure failure wasn't fatal. Fire, Maria ordered. The Magellan's mining lasers, designed to carve up asteroids for resources, focused on the nearest Kelvorian ship. The beams were crude compared to real weapons. But at this range, they didn't need to be elegant. The first Kelvorian ship's shields overloaded. The laser punched through and carved a glowing line across its hull. Atmosphere vented. The ship tumbled away, crippled. The Kelvorian formation scattered in confusion. They had expected an easy capture. Instead, they had a fight. Maria pressed the advantage. Launch kinetic impactors. Full spread. The Magellan carried hundreds of tungsten rods designed for asteroid mining. Each one was magnetically accelerated to tremendous speeds. They weren't sophisticated. They were just very, very fast chunks of metal. Physics did the rest. 2 more Kelvorian ships took hits. One lost its engine section. The other simply broke apart, unable to withstand the kinetic impact. Captain, they're retreating, Tactical shouted. Maria watched the alien ships pull back, regrouping at a distance. She had damaged or destroyed 3 ships, but there were still 12 left, and the Magellan was not a warship. She had gotten lucky. She had surprised them. It wouldn't work twice. Open a channel, she ordered. When the Kelvorian commander appeared, she spoke first. We didn't want this fight. You fired on us. You tried to disable our ship and take away our freedom. We defended ourselves. That's all. The Kelvorian stared at her. Its colors had shifted to something darker. You destroyed council vessels. You attacked civilians, Maria countered. Are we at war now? Is that what the council wants? There was a long silence. Finally, the Kelvorian spoke. You will remain here while we consult with council command. If you attempt to proceed, we will destroy you. We'll wait, Maria said. For now. The transmission ended. Her tactical officer turned to her. Captain, what just happened? Maria slumped in her chair, adrenaline draining away. We just became the first humans to fight in space against aliens. And we won. They'll be back, her engineer said quietly. With more ships. Real warships, I know. Maria looked at her crew. Send a message to Earth, full report. Let them know what happened here. Let them know the council fired first. As the message was prepared, Maria looked out at the stars. Somewhere the council was learning that humanity wasn't going to roll over. That disabled didn't mean defeated. That tools could become weapons in the right hands. Somewhere, Admiral Webb was probably smiling, and somewhere, the galaxy was realizing it had made a terrible miscalculation. The news reached Earth 3 days later. It reached the council at the same time. Admiral Webb read the report twice. Then he called an emergency meeting of the Earth Assembly. The Magellan was attacked without provocation, he told them. Captain Liu defended her ship and her people. 3 alien vessels were destroyed or disabled. The Magellan sustained minor damage and is holding position. This is war, someone said. No, Marcus replied. This is what happens when you push humans into a corner. We don't surrender. We fight back. Always. At the council chamber, High Counselor Vareth was receiving similar reports, but his included tactical analysis. The humans had used civilian equipment as weapons. Their shields had held against weapons that should have overloaded them instantly. Their ship had redundancies the Kelvorian analysts had never seen before. How did they survive? He demanded. Their entire engineering philosophy is different, the analyst explained. They assume everything will fail, so they build multiple backup systems. Where we build one strong shield, they build 3 weaker ones that can support each other. Why would they do that? Because their planet tried to kill them for millions of years, Shira said, appearing on the holographic display. Earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, meteor impacts. They evolved in constant disaster. They learned to build for survival, not elegance. Farheth turned on her. You said they weren't dangerous. I said they were unknown, Shira corrected. Now we know something. They don't fight like us. They don't think like us. And they absolutely will not accept being caged. Thane appeared on another display. Vareth, pull your fleet back, before this becomes something we cannot contain. It is already contained, Vareth said coldly. One human ship against the entire council fleet. This is not a war. This is pest control. But even as he said it, reports were coming in from across council space. Human ships weren't stopping. More colony vessels were launching from Earth. The ones already in space were refusing orders to turn back, and every single one of them was ready to fight rather than surrender. The galaxy was changing. The silence was over. Dr. Velshara of the Mirian Collective had not slept in 3 days. Her species required less rest than most, but even by Mirian standards, she was pushing herself too hard. She couldn't stop. Every time she looked at the human data, she found something new. Something terrifying. The war had been going for 2 months now. Small skirmishes across a dozen systems. The Calvorian fleet would find a human vessel and order it to turn back. The humans would refuse. Fighting would break out. Sometimes the humans won. Sometimes they lost. But they never, ever surrendered. Velshara had watched recordings of every battle. She had studied human history going back 10,000 years. She had analyzed their psychology, their culture, their biology, and she had discovered something the Council desperately needed to understand. She requested an emergency session. The Council granted it reluctantly. They were busy managing a war they had never expected to fight. When the delegates assembled, Velshara began her presentation. Honorable Council members, I have completed my analysis of the human species. What I have found changes everything we thought we knew about them. She displayed an image of Earth. Humans are unique among all known spacefaring species. They are the only race that evolved as both predator and prey. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Every other species in this council evolved along one path or the other, Velshara continued. The Calvorians evolved as apex predators. They are hierarchical, territorial, and direct. My people evolved as prey. We are cooperative, peaceful, and cautious. The Threen were pack hunters. The Zorath were herd animals. Predator or prey, hunter or hunted, she zoomed in on the image. Humans are different. Their ancestors were both hunter and hunted. They killed for food, but they were also food for larger predators. This shaped their psychology in unprecedented ways. A new image appeared, a graph showing human conflicts over time. Humans have been at war continuously for their entire recorded history. Not occasional wars, constant warfare. They have fought over territory, resources, ideology, religion, and sometimes for no clear reason at all. This proves they are dangerous. Vareth interrupted. Exactly as I have been saying. You misunderstand, Velshara said firmly. They are not dangerous because they are violent. They are dangerous because they have learned to thrive in violence. Every war made them stronger. Every conflict drove innovation. They invented agriculture during a war. They split the atom during a war. They went to space because two nations were competing against each other. She pulled up more data. Look at their weapons development. 240 years ago, they created nuclear weapons, bombs powerful enough to destroy entire cities. Within 20 years, they had enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire civilization. Then why didn't they? Thane asked quietly. Because they created a doctrine called mutually assured destruction, Velshara explained. They accepted that using these weapons would mean everyone died. And then they simply lived with it. For decades, every human on Earth lived under the threat of complete extinction. It became normal for them. The chamber was silent. No other species has this tolerance for existential threat, Velshara continued. When my people faced a similar crisis, we negotiated peace immediately. When the Calvorians faced extinction, they retreated and rebuilt. Humans did neither. They just incorporated the threat into their daily lives and continued on. She displayed images of human cities, human families, human children. They lived, loved, had children, built civilizations, all while knowing that at any moment everything could end. This psychological resilience is unprecedented. What are you saying? Vareth demanded. I'm saying we cannot fight them the way we would fight any other species, Velshara replied. Threats don't work. They've lived under worse threats than we can imagine. Overwhelming force doesn't work. They will fight impossible odds because they've done it before. Isolation doesn't work. They've been alone in the universe for their entire existence, she took a breath. We caged them thinking it would protect them and us. Instead, we created the one thing guaranteed to make them aggressive. We made them feel trapped. So what do you suggest? Shira asked. Capitulation? We simply let them do whatever they want. I suggest we treat them like equals, Velshara said. Immediately. Full council membership, full rights, full access to all galactic knowledge and technology. The chamber erupted in outrage. Delegates shouted over each other. Vareth's colors shifted to violent crimson. That is insane, he roared. They are barely FTL capable. They have no understanding of galactic politics. They are violent, aggressive, and unpredictable. Yes, Velshara agreed calmly. They are all of those things. They are also brilliant, adaptable, and completely unwilling to back down. We can either accept them now, on relatively good terms, or we can fight them until one side is destroyed. Those are our only options. There is a third option, Vareth said coldly. We crush them now before they become a real threat. The full council fleet, complete military superiority. We end this before it begins. You cannot crush humans, Velshara said quietly. They don't know how to be crushed. It's not in their psychology. You can kill them, yes. You can even extinct them. But you cannot make them submit. They will fight until the last human is dead. Then perhaps that is what must happen, Vareth said. Thane stood abruptly. Enough, Vareth, you speak of genocide. I speak of containment. You speak of fear, Thane shot back. You are afraid of them because they don't follow the rules you understand. But the Mirian is right. We cannot fight them the way we fight others. I have reviewed the battle reports. The humans do not fight for glory or territory. They fight for the idea that no one has the right to control them. He gestured at the star maps showing human ship movements. Every vessel we've disabled, they've rescued or repaired. Every crew we've captured, they've negotiated for. They protect each other with a ferocity we haven't seen in millennia. This is not an army. This is a family protecting itself. Pretty words, Vareth said, but they change nothing. The humans must be stopped. Then you will have your war, Thane said. But hear me now, Vareth. The Threen will not participate in it. We were once like the humans. Aggressive, territorial. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned wisdom. I will not help you repeat our mistakes. Nor will the Mirians, Shira added. We vote for immediate membership. Let the humans join us. Let them learn from us. Let us learn from them. The council was fracturing. Vareth could see it happening. But he was committed now. The Kelvorian Empire will do what must be done, he declared, with or without council approval. I am authorizing the Fifth Fleet to proceed to human space. 500 ships, overwhelming force. We will blockade their system. We will force them to negotiate from a position of weakness. They will fight, Velshara warned. Then they will die. The council session ended in chaos. Delegates argued and formed factions. Some supported Vareth. Others backed Shira and Thane. The unity that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was crumbling, all because of one species that refused to stay quiet. When the news reached Earth, Admiral Webb called an emergency meeting. Every military commander, every colony governor, every ship captain gathered via holographic link. Marcus stood before them and showed them the approaching Kelvorian fleet. 500 ships, the largest military force the Council had ever assembled. They're coming to force us back into our cage, he said simply. They think overwhelming numbers will make us surrender. Can we fight that many ships? Someone asked. No, Marcus admitted. Not in open battle. They have better weapons, better shields, better FTL. If we meet them ship to ship, we lose. Then what do? Marcus smiled grimly. We do what humans have always done when faced with superior forces. We cheat, we improvise. We turn our entire solar system into one massive defensive position. He pulled up a tactical display. Every asteroid becomes a weapons platform. Every satellite becomes a mine. Every space station becomes a fortress. We use the terrain. We make them come to us and we make them pay for every kilometer of space. That's a defensive strategy, a colony governor said. We'll be trapped in our own system. For now, Marcus agreed. But we only need to hold them off until the galaxy sees what's happening. Until the other council members understand that this is unjust. Velshara is fighting for us. So is Shira. Commander Thane has withdrawn Threen support from the blockade. He looked around at the assembled leaders. We're not alone anymore. We have allies out there. We just need to survive long enough for them to act. Can we do that? The answer came from dozens of voices at once. Yes. Marcus nodded. Then let's show the galaxy what happens when you corner humanity. Let's show them that we don't surrender. We don't give up. And we absolutely positively do not go quietly. The Kelvorian Fifth Fleet entered the Sol system 3 weeks later, 500 warships arrayed in perfect formation. They expected to find scattered human defenses, desperate last-ditch resistance. Instead, they found humanity's home system transformed into a fortress unlike anything they had ever seen. And the battle for Earth's freedom began. The Kelvorian Fifth Fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system in perfect formation. 500 warships representing the accumulated military might of the Council's most powerful empire. Fleet Commander Zelthar stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his overwhelming superiority. They had come to end this farce. The humans would see the fleet, understand the futility of resistance, and surrender. It was inevitable. Begin long-range scans, Zelthar ordered. Locate their defensive positions. The scanner operator worked for several minutes. Then he looked up, confusion on his face. Commander, I'm reading everything. Explain. Every asteroid in the belt has been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform. Every satellite in orbit around every planet has been armed. The space stations have been fortified. I'm reading over 10,000 distinct defensive positions. Zelthar felt the first stirring of unease. They've had 3 weeks. How did they accomplish so much? They used their mining equipment, construction drones, everything they had. The operator pulled up detailed scans. Commander, they've turned their entire solar system into a fortress. It doesn't matter, Zelthar said, forcing confidence into his voice. We have 500 warships against civilian infrastructure. Their weapons are mining tools and improvised explosives. Begin the advance. Broadcast the ultimatum. The message went out across every human frequency. Attention human vessels and stations. This is Fleet Commander Zelthar of the Kelvorian Fifth Fleet. You are in violation of Council quarantine protocols. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond. On Earth, Admiral Webb received the message surrounded by his command staff. Everyone looked at him waiting. What do we say? Someone asked. Marcus thought of Sarah Chen, working frantically in the observatory to coordinate the defense. He thought of Captain Liu and the Magellan, still holding position at Proxima Centauri, waiting to see if humanity would survive. He thought of every human in history who had faced impossible odds and fought anyway. Send one word, he said. No. The response reached the Kelvorian fleet exactly as the hour expired. One word, simple, defiant. No, Zelthar's colors shifted to angry crimson. They refuse, very well. All ships advance. Weapons free. Disable their defenses systematically. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. When they reached weapons range of the asteroid belt, the humans opened fire. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't sophisticated. But there was a lot of it. Mining lasers designed to cut rock carved into shields. Magnetic accelerators built for moving ore launched tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. Nuclear devices intended for asteroid deflection detonated in carefully calculated positions, creating deadly clouds of shrapnel. The Kelvorian shields held. They were designed to withstand serious military weapons. These crude human tools barely scratched them. But there were thousands of them, and they kept firing. Shields at 90%, a Kelvorian officer reported. 85, 80. Destroy those platforms, Zelthar ordered. His ships returned fire, and human positions began to die. Asteroids cracked apart under concentrated fire. Space stations vented atmosphere. The humans were losing, but they kept fighting. And then the real defense began. The debris field the humans had seeded throughout the asteroid belt activated. Thousands of small objects, each one broadcasting the radar signature of a warship. The Kelvorian targeting systems went haywire, unable to distinguish real threats from decoys. While the fleet was distracted, human ships emerged from hiding positions inside hollowed-out asteroids. They weren't warships. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, even passenger transports. But every single one had been armed with whatever weapons humanity could mount on them. They attacked in swarms, darting in and out, never staying in one place. They didn't try to win. They just tried to survive long enough to hurt the enemy. It was chaos. It was desperate. It was completely unlike any military engagement the Kelvorians had ever experienced. They're fighting like insects, one officer shouted. They're fighting like humans, Zelthar corrected grimly. All ships maintain formation. Do not pursue. They want us to break ranks. But his crews were trained for honorable combat, ship-to-ship warfare with clear objectives. This was something else entirely. The humans didn't care about honor. They cared about survival. A human cargo ship, engines burning, slammed directly into a Kelvorian destroyer. Both vessels exploded. The humans had just sacrificed an entire ship and crew to take down one enemy vessel. Suicide tactics, an officer whispered. No, Zelthar said quietly. Sacrifice tactics. They're buying time, but time for what? The answer came from the outer system. Commander Thane's Threen fleet emerged from FTL. Weapons powered but not targeting anyone. Attention, Kelvorian fleet. Thane's voice boomed across all frequencies. Stand down. This conflict ends now. Zelthar's colors flickered with confusion and anger. Commander Thane, you are interfering with an authorized council operation. There is nothing authorized about this, Thane replied. The council is divided. You act alone, Zelthar, and you will stop before you commit atrocities that will shame us all. The humans fired first. The humans defended themselves after you attacked their civilian vessel, Thane corrected. I have seen the records. I have reviewed the evidence. You fired first. You escalated at every turn. And now you bring 500 warships against a species fighting for its freedom. Zelthar started to respond, but more ships emerged from FTL. Mirian science vessels. Shira's voice joined Thane's. Fleet Commander, we petition you to cease hostilities. The Council is meeting an emergency session. This war lacks proper authorization. You must stop. I have my orders, Zelthar said stubbornly. Orders from Vareth, Thane said. Not from the Council as a whole. You are acting on the authority of one member against the objections of many others. That makes you a rogue element, Zelthar. Not a legitimate Council force. On the bridge of his flagship, Zelthar looked at the tactical displays. His fleet had destroyed dozens of human positions. But they had also taken damage. 3 ships crippled, 7 more with shield failures. And the humans were still fighting. Every human position they destroyed cost them something. Every minute of combat wore down his fleet's cohesion. The humans weren't trying to win. They were trying to make victory too expensive to achieve. And it was working. Commander, his tactical officer said quietly, we can win this battle, but it will cost us 50 ships, maybe more. And the humans will fight to the last one. They have made that clear. Zelthar looked at the planet Earth hanging in the distance. Billions of humans lived there. Not soldiers, not warriors, just people trying to survive. People who refused to surrender. Cease fire, he said finally. All ships cease fire. The battle stopped. The silence was deafening. Thane moved his fleet between the Kelvorians and the human defenses. A wise decision, Zelthar. Now we will all proceed to neutral space and discuss this properly, like civilized beings. The council chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries. Every delegate was present. The humans had been granted temporary observer status, and Admiral Webb stood beside Sarah Chen in their designated space. High Counselor Vareth looked diminished somehow. His colors were muted. The vote of no confidence against his leadership had failed, but barely. Shira spoke first. The quarantine protocols were created to protect developing species from premature contact. They were meant to be compassionate. Instead, we used them to control, to cage. We forgot that protection without consent is imprisonment. Velshara added her analysis. The humans are psychologically unique. They evolved under constant threat. They developed technology faster than any known species because they had to. Their entire history is about overcoming impossible odds. We tried to make them submit to rules they never agreed to, and they responded exactly as their history would predict. They fought back. They are dangerous, Vareth said weakly. Yes, Thane agreed. They are dangerous, so are we. So is every species in this chamber. We are all capable of violence. The question is whether we are also capable of peace. He turned to Admiral Webb. Humanity has proven they can fight. The question is, can you also negotiate? Can you accept limits? Can you work within a system, even when you disagree with it? Marcus stepped forward. Sarah squeezed his hand once, then let go. We can, Marcus said simply. But we won't accept being controlled. We won't accept decisions being made for us without our input. We are willing to join your council. We are willing to follow reasonable rules. But we will not be caged. Ever again. And if the council makes decisions you disagree with, Vareth demanded, then we will argue our position. We will try to change minds. We will work within the system. Marcus met the Kelvorian's eyes. But we will not simply accept injustice because someone in authority declares it necessary. That's not who we are. There was a long silence. Finally, Shira spoke. I propose full membership for humanity. Immediate access to FTL technology, medical knowledge, and scientific databases. In exchange, Humanity agrees to council jurisdiction in matters of interstellar law. I second the proposal, Thane said. With one addition, humanity will also serve as the council's rapid response force. Their tactical thinking is unlike ours.